So for those of you that don't know me, I am Taylor Ann Burtz. I am the daughter of Helen Smith and the sister of Julia Smith. Helen Smith was the founder of the Glanzmann Research Foundation, and Julia, for the longest time, was the face of the Glanzmann Research Foundation. Let's see. Hold on, guys. I did become president back in 2020 after the passing of my mother in 2019. And we immediately kind of put into action some of the changes that Mom wanted to make for the foundation. And that's kind of what we've been working on for the past couple of years. My mom did have me at a very early age at 22 from a previous marriage. And she married the man that I call my dad, my stepfather, in 1994. In 1997, my little brother Millage was born, and never to be outdone, Julia surprised us in 1998. Julia is my little sister who has Glanzmann Thrombasthenia. I will never forget the first 4 years of Julia's life. They were terrifying, and an immense sense of helplessness hung in the air over our family. When Mom formed the GRF, our entire family dove headfirst, willing to help in any way possible. That mentality stuck with me. Growing up, I would recruit friends to volunteer at events. I would bring GT up in any science class, especially biology, when we would learn about genetics. In 2007, when we went to Washington, D.C. for Julia's Make-A-Wish trip, I felt something shift. I watched as my mother knocked on Georgia lawmakers' doors in the Capitol building. To call her fearless would be inaccurate, but that woman was a hurricane when it came to GT and the GRF. Over the next couple of years, I watched as she Googled the phone number to the White House and was able to speak directly with a presidential aide. Being her daughter, sounding board, and living in the same house was synonymous with an intense internship in patient advocacy. She approached me about 6 months before she passed away about her thoughts on changing up the board, filling it with advocates in our community, and freshening up the website. She asked me if I would be willing to be on the board, and I told her, of course. The morning after she passed, Julia walked in my grandmother's house door. I looked at Julia and I let her know that she probably needed to inform the GT community. Over the following week, I helped Julia field phone calls, text messages, and social media from that community who was family. My little sister at the end of the week looked me in the eye and said, "I can't do this yet. I can't fill this role." So I, as any big sister would do, stepped in. Together, Julia and I drew up the plans for the new board. We decided that I would hand the role of president over to her when she was ready. Julia and I picked Peter, who had been Mom's right-hand man when it came to social media, as our vice president. And Peter is going to tell you a little bit about himself.
Hey guys, so as Taylor just mentioned, I was made the vice president in 2020, and for a while, since 2018, I was managing the Facebook group when Helen asked me. I was diagnosed with GT at 8 months, and I was one of the first GT patients in Massachusetts. Some of my worst problems when I was growing up was anemia, nosebleeds. I had a severe GI bleed, and a fun one was potato chip cut my tonsil and kept bleeding and bleeding and bleeding. But I don't have to tell you that, everyone understands. After meeting Helen for the first time at one of the first events she put on, I felt like I wasn't alone anymore. And when joining the GRF, everything felt a lot better, and I lost that feeling of loneliness.
So what is Glanzmann's?
Got a short video for you guys.
Glanzmann's Thrombasthenia is a rare genetic blood disorder. In healthy individuals, proteins on the surface of platelets allow them to link together and coagulate. But in patients like Julia, these proteins are missing or malfunction. As a result, platelets slide off one another and aren't able to form a solid clot.
If a person cuts themselves and starts bleeding, the platelet has to go to the injured tissue and it sticks to the tissue. And this is where the problem is for Glanzmann thrombasthenia. Platelets can adhere, you cannot form a solid clot. And that's why you continue to have bleeding or exaggerated bruising.
So the layman's way that Mom always explained GT when she spoke to classes, doctors, medical students, teachers, politicians, and even the president was, imagine that you're baking a cake. Now, imagine that you have all of the ingredients except for the leavening agent, which is what you use for the cake to rise. That one missing ingredient has now completely changed the final product. That's exactly what happens with GT. Because of one missing ingredient, the platelets can no longer function or no longer fulfill their functions. So the Glanzmann's Research Foundation exists to increase awareness of Glanzmann's thrombasthenia, provide a network of support for families navigating a GT diagnosis, and raise funding to find a cure. Helen Smith founded the Glanzmann's Research Foundation in 2001. Helen Proctor Smith never did anything halfway when it came to her children. This passion was the spark that fueled the flame that became the Glanzmann's Research Foundation. The moment she found Dr. Wilcox, she knew he was going to find a cure, and she knew that she would help in any way that she could. It was completely unacceptable to her that money could possibly get in the way of a cure for her daughter and for everyone that she met along the way who had GT as well. She made multiple contributions to the bleeding disorder community throughout the years. She helped edit and contributed to the Hemophilia of Georgia's Bleeding Disorder Handbook. Like I said earlier, when I was talking about who I am, when we went to Washington, D.C., she walked straight into lawmakers' offices, did not even stop, did not ask if it was okay or not. And that's basically how she was about everything when it came to the Glanzmann's Research Foundation. She wanted to make sure that the information was available to anyone and everyone who got a diagnosis. Her work over the years garnered her many awards, including the Jefferson Award, which is considered to be the Nobel Prize for Public and Community Service. She was also invited to speak at the awards event. During her time with the Glanzmann's Research Foundation, she raised more than $300,000 for Dr. Wilcox's research. So I want to share with you the account of Julia's birth from my grandmother before Peter shows this clip of the video. She actually just shared this the other day, and I'm very thankful that she did, because getting it in writing from her perspective is amazing. So this is from her post. My heart is full. I am so thankful that y'all are continuing the fight for a cure for GT. I remember being there when Julia was born. Her stay in the PICU, the phone calls from Helen. They were in Birmingham and I was in Augusta. Helen was considered an over-concerned mother by her doctors. I was blessed to be able to facilitate coagulation tests at MCG. I'm a medical technologist and at the time worked in the clinical lab at the Medical College of Georgia. Julia was born in October and MCG tested her in April. Life was never the same. Thank God for the doctors at the medical college and my daughter Helen, who never gave up. After the diagnosis of GT, Helen never gave up. She went to the internet for answers. In her early research, her grandmother from Pennsylvania sent Helen a check for $10 and asked her to do something to help find a cure. And that was it. Helen realized that to help Julia, she had to be it. That person who would reach out to the medical field, whomever out there had GT, and anybody out there who could help. One person, my beautiful daughter, whose love for her babies was enormous, accepted the challenge. The GT Foundation was established. Those early years when the number of GT patients that she had located were so few, the early fundraisers here in Augusta, meeting y'all, one person accomplished something that will help so many GT patients. God bless you.
Very first night visiting my parents, I woke up to Julia's cries. I picked her up and felt that she was wet. And when I turned on the light, it was my worst nightmare. It was a scene out of a horror story. Her hair was matted with blood. Her whole face was covered in blood. Her clothes were completely saturated. I was terrified. As we cleaned her up, we couldn't find the source until we got the very last speck of blood off of her face. And all of that blood came from a tiny nick that she had caused with a fingernail on her face.
Desperate to find out what's wrong, Helen and Ann decide to take matters into their own hands.
I worked at a medical college laboratory that did advanced testing on blood. They were doing a clotting test that was beyond what the ordinary laboratory ran. And Julia had not yet had that test.
The very next day, they bring Julia to the medical lab so Ann's coworkers can administer the test.
The results showed that Julia's platelets did not work correctly.
So in 2001, the internet was still relatively new, like extremely new. And the little bit of information that Mom garnered about GT was found throughout hours and hours of researching, and it was extremely underwhelming. So inspired by the message boards on other websites, she created www.curegt.com to be a one-stop shop for information and a place for people to share their stories and connect. During this time, she found Dr. David Wilcox. Her and Dr. David Wilcox became very good friends over the 19 years of knowing each other. Dr. Wilcox is an associate professor of pediatric hematology, oncology, and bone marrow transplant at the Medical College of Wisconsin. He's been investigating the potential for utilizing the unique properties of platelets, and as the recipient of numerous grants and awards, both public and private, these efforts have led to 3 platforms for gene therapy, addressing diseases including Glanzmann Thrombasthenia and hemophilia A, as well as several types of cancer. Dr. Wilcox has been extremely supportive of the GT community over the years, and he has talked at many of our fundraisers. Y'all, I promise I'm going to try to be good, but I might tear up a little bit during this one. Karen Tucker, better known to our community as KT. KT was larger than life. She lived an extremely difficult life with GT that didn't affect her positivity or her humor at all. In her Faces of GT story, she said, "I must be upfront. My history is not a nice one, but I have learned in life, everyone's life is not all peaches and cream." Towards the end of her life, KT had developed multiple antibodies. And platelet transfusions were very difficult for her to find. Each bleed that she had ended up becoming very life-threatening. She was the first person my family met with GT, and she set the tone for our community being family from that very first hug. I know that anybody who met KT over the years, the first time that you met her, she gave you a hug. That's exactly who she was. If you were a part of the GT community, you were family. She was the surrogate crazy aunt to everybody within the community, and her undying support of everyone was inspirational. She's one of the pillars that built the Glanzmann's Research Foundation, and she contributed valuable resources and information during the 18 years that she had with the GRF. So when Mom started the Glanzmann's Research Foundation, it was on a much, much smaller scale. She only knew a handful of people with Glanzmann's. So in 2001, our first fundraiser was a golf tournament, and it was at a very small, out of the way country club. We did that for a few years and then started to get a little bit bigger. They did a night at a Fort Discovery, which was a science museum for kids. And then we moved into casino night. This was the last casino night that we had. This was everybody from the GT community and GT family in one big picture. So in 2020, we rebranded the Glanzmann's Research Foundation. As I said, things had changed over the years. Social media is much bigger than what it was when the foundation started. And we had a hard time getting into the old website and everything. And so we saw it as a sign to finally rebrand it the way that Mom wanted to. So on July 27th, Mom's birthday, the new website for the GRF launched. Since we launched the new website, we have had over 16,000 visits to that. May not sound like a lot but for this being a disorder where it affects 1 in every million people worldwide, it's amazing. Our Facebook group has grown by 103 members within the past year, and we're consistently approving new members, sometimes upwards of 2 to 3 new members a day. So a lot of y'all here have GT, or you're part of the GT community, so you know a lot of the treatments of a bleed. But the biggest bleeds that we see within the community are nosebleeds, gum bleeds, and sometimes there are some GI bleeds. But for nosebleeds and gum bleeds, pressure, blood stop, bleed cease, quick clot, nose blood, green tea bag, silver nitrate, fibrillar, these are all resources that are available. And all of this you can find on our website. For some of the larger bleeding, there are some medicines out there. There's Nova 7, Amicar, and then also iron supplements. Platelet transfusions. Anybody who knew my mother knew that she was not a fan of platelet transfusions. I think the reason she wasn't a fan of platelet transfusions is the risk of antibodies. They're always a risk. She used to explain it to me like how they talk about cigarettes are a risk for lung cancer. You never know which one is going to give you cancer. You never know which transfusion is going to give you antibodies. And that's how she looked at them. Now, she had a very black and white view for platelet transfusions, but we understand that they are still the first thing that are recommended when a bad bleed is happening. Just know that antibodies are always a risk, and we do recommend using platelet transfusions as a last resort in order to reduce risk of developing antibodies. And if you are receiving platelets, HLA matched platelets are the best option. And just to give you an idea, platelet reactive antibodies were detected in 37.35% of people in a study who received multiple transfusions. And that is 127 people out of 340 patients. The increased use of platelet transfusions increases the risk of developing antibodies. Factor 7A. So there is one drug out there that is FDA approved for the treatment of GT. The FDA approval does state that the treatment of Nova 7 for Glanzmann Thrombasthenia during a bleed, if a platelet transfusion is unsuccessful. Now, everyone here who has GT and who has used Nova 7 knows that that's not the way that doctors use it and not the way that we've been told to use it. Nova 7 should be used before a platelet transfusion. It is what is a clotting agent that you want to use before you do a platelet transfusion. But Nova 7 was not developed specifically for GT, so it does come with risks as well. If Nova 7 is overused, you do run the risk of severe blood clotting. And Nova 7 should always be used under the supervision of your physician. Nova 7 has been a massive game changer, guys. It is, when it's used correctly, it can do absolute wonders. And Novo Nordisk, they have done a ton to help spread awareness for GT. This is not us saying don't use Nova 7. This is just us saying be careful when you use Nova 7. Make sure you're using it correctly, and make sure that your doctors are using it correctly. Bone marrow transplants. Bone marrow transplants are considered a controversial cure for GT due to the risks involved. A bone marrow transplant replaces unhealthy blood-forming cells with healthy ones. Blood-forming cells are immature cells that grow into red blood cells, white blood cells, and platelets. They're found in the soft tissue inside your bones called bone marrow. When they're mature, they leave the marrow and enter the bloodstream. Before transplant, you get chemotherapy and sometimes radiation to destroy the diseased cells and marrow. Then the healthy cells are given to you. Bone marrow transplants are not surgery. The new cells go into your bloodstream through an IV catheter or tube, and it's just like getting blood or medicine through an IV. From there, the cells find their ways into your marrow. It can take months or years to recover from a bone marrow transplant. So we do, like I said, it is considered a cure for GT, but it's very controversial. It comes with massive risks, and it should be an extreme last resort due to the intensity of the process. We do have people within our Facebook community who have gone through bone marrow transplants who would absolutely love to answer any questions that you have if you're thinking of it, even if you are playing with the idea or trying to get an idea as to what it is. That is what our community is there for. An emergency plan. Guys, an emergency plan isn't a suggestion. It's necessary for a GT patient. This is necessary because you have a rare bleeding disorder that affects 1 in every million people worldwide. The likelihood of your emergency room doctor knowing what your rare disorder is low. If they do know what it is, the likelihood of them having treated someone with your disorder is even lower. So make sure that you have an emergency plan and you come up with one with your medical team. Bleeding protocols that are used in the emergency room are not often the best approach for GT. This is why it's so important for you to have an emergency plan. Advocate for yourself or your loved one. An example emergency plan is available on our website. And if you're nervous about advocating for yourself or advocating for your child, there's so many people within our community who have done this, who have been through it. Reach out. You can always reach out to me. You can always reach out to Missy, Peter's mom. And there's even more people in the group that are available as well. So today we have our Facebook support group. Last time I looked, I think it was close to 700 people, a little bit over 700 people, which is mind-blowing. Dr. Wilcox's next steps towards a cure are human trials, and human trials are expensive, like big money. We're talking $50 million money. Big money means big donors, which means increasing awareness, which means getting your community involved, getting your treatment team involved. Talk to anybody and everybody about GT. If you don't even know where to start, I mean, look at Amelie. Her mom, Elena, has been posting some stuff on Facebook these past couple of days. And this little girl absolutely blows my mind. She is such a role model at such a young age. She talks about GT to everybody, and she is going to make sure everyone in her life knows exactly what it is that she fights with every single day. So get your community involved. Help us spread the word. Every little bit helps, and we're now in that final push towards a cure. Our long-term goals for the foundation. We want to see a cure for GT. We don't want to see a treatment. Treatment would be great. I would love to see. Another one of our long-term goals is that we want to see a decrease in the antibodies and severe clotting incidences. These are avoidable. They're avoidable because you can be getting HLA matched platelets, and you can decrease on the amount of platelets you're getting. Using Nova7 instead of getting platelets to try to stop a bleed is always an option. And if you can't get your hands on Nova7, reach out to us, and we can reach out to Novo Nordisk, or we can reach out to a couple of our contacts as well and try to get you some Nova7, especially here in the States. Internationally, it's a little bit more difficult, but we can definitely still try. We have contacts within the World Federation of Hemophilia and contacts with Novo Nordisk as well. So it just might be a little bit more difficult than in the States. We do want to start doing an annual conference where the GT community can get together. The best thing about the fundraisers that we did back from 2001 to 2008 was being able to get everybody together. Just seeing everybody and getting everybody with Dr. Wilcox. Making faces at me. Okay. Also, we want to do monthly webinars and develop a GT podcast. These are something that we would love your feedback on, especially the podcast. Pita.
Today, Julia is 11 years old, and while she continues to bruise easily, she's living a very full and miraculously active life.
Although I have Glanzmann's, I don't let it hold me down. I love to ride my scooter a lot, but I usually have to wear my helmet.
We've really made an effort to allow Julia to experience those things that she wants to experience within reason, and kept her abreast of everything to do with her disorder.
She can live a happy life. She'll never be normal, but she can be pretty close to normal.
When I grow up, I still want to be a mom. Although I can't have a baby, I would like to adopt one so I could have a child, and so that that child would have a home.
Julia's the strongest person I know. I don't know too many people that could go through the things that she goes through and come out as good as she has. She's a fighter.
Okay, guys. So getting a GT diagnosis is not the end. The floor has fallen out from under you. Life will never be the same. We've all been there. Life won't be the same, but it isn't over. Our community is full of people living remarkable lives. Quinn. Quinn is now 18. He was diagnosed at birth, and he kept active despite having GT. He participated in a large variety of sports, and he said, "Just because I have Glanzmann's doesn't mean I have to live in a bubble and alienate myself from my peers. Although I am very different from my peers in some ways, I can be very close to normal with a sense of caution." His parents helped to not focus on the ifs and buts, but focus on what he could do. I want everyone to know that this disorder doesn't make you weak or incapable. I'm very grateful for the people around me who support me and let me live a normal life with such an abnormal disorder. We also have Jack. Jack was diagnosed at 3 months old. For the first 2 years, his bleeds brought on a wave of panic to his parents. As time went on, they gained experience in seeing how his body would react to certain injuries. They bring a sense of calm on how to react to new bleeds. A child with an anaphylactic response to an allergen has a small window in which care is necessary. With GT, there's more time to calm down, evaluate, and seek treatment. Realizing each bleed was not going to be life-threatening was a huge turning point for my response. I also realized that my panic every time he was hurt was only adding to stress and discomfort that he was feeling. After establishing response plans with his doctors and care team, I knew that no matter what the injury or bleeding episode, we knew who to call, where to go, and what to do until the next step was needed. Now that he's older, when he gets injured, he takes great comfort knowing when we can take care of this at home instead of having to go to the hospital. Then we have Emily. She's our regular old wild child. Emily's now 27. She was diagnosed at a few months old. She reaches for all goals despite GT. She's competed in rodeo and is pursuing a physically demanding career. There's risk of injury doing the most basic daily tasks like driving to work or walking up the stairs. So why not pursue the things I enjoy with the proper precautions, of course? My parents always pushed me to reach for my dreams and to recognize the things I must do to make more risky activities safer. I would like the community to know that GT does not mean you can't reach for the things you want in life. It just means you need to be a little more creative on how you get there. This community is full of people with different backgrounds and experiences, and I'm grateful that I get to learn from them and be a part of it. So these are some resource reminders, and I think Peter is going to screen share with us in a second. But our website has a ton of resources that are very searchable. And as much as you can go to the support group and everything and type in a question, a lot of times that question's been asked before, and those answers are available to you on the website or even within our Facebook page. Please share your story with us on our website. Someone may relate to what you've been through. You heard Peter earlier talk about how that moment when he didn't feel like he was alone. That's one of Peter's biggest things when he meets new GT people or when he's talking to people is letting them know that they're not alone. It's such a big thing to finally find online a picture and a story that you can relate to. There is a search function in the Facebook group to see if your question has been answered before, and mentorships is available on the Facebook group as well. Facebook now has an anonymous function, and we have a suggestion box for anything GRF related located at the bottom of our website at curegt.org.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen just to show you guys where a few of those resources were, and then we can move into questions. So here's the website. If you want to share a story, it's right here at the top, Faces of GT. You can come look at a few other ones to get an idea of what you should be kind of following for a template. Honestly, I'll really put whatever up, and it doesn't have to be English. I might translate it using Google Translator, but if you're not from the US, which a lot of people in our group are, don't feel afraid that I'm not going to be putting it up. So please share it with me. But anyways, look at these stories if you need some ideas, and go ahead and click on share your story. This page will pop up, and then all you have to do is fill it out. Make sure to put a photo in. It really helps if there's a picture with your story. And here's our Facebook group. So this is a really hidden thing, I won't lie, but even on mobile there is a search button. So before you ask a question, don't be afraid to go ahead and search it. There might already be some really great answers, some really great threads about that question already. And right here is the mentorship tab. We have a lot of mentors already. They're saying a little bit of their backgrounds, what they're familiar with. And you guys can sign up to be mentors. If you're looking for a mentor, you can start a conversation with them. This is a really great option on Facebook. And, I posted about it once. We never really took advantage of it, and I think we should really jump into this. Lastly was the anonymous function. So I think everyone should be seeing the same thing that I am. You should see this right here, and you can click, and whatever your question is will not show your profile or your name. I believe there's also a version of it on the mobile for Facebook.
We also have an anonymous Discord as well, which is an anonymous message board. So if you don't have Facebook, you can get on there as well and post anything. I know I have it set up to notify my phone. I think Peter does too. So if there's anything new on there, we can get into that, and we can definitely answer any questions that you might have.
And one last thing I forgot to mention was the suggestion box. That's at the bottom of our website. You go ahead and click on there. We'll bring you to a Google form, and you can just fill it out. This is literally anything that you think we should be doing as a foundation that would help us further fundraising events, conferences, Facebook group ideas.
Ideas for a webinar, something that you feel like isn't talked enough within the group, anything like that.
Yep.
So now we are opening it up to questions.
Glanzmann's Thrombasthenia.
Ooh. I'm pressing things, I'm sorry.
So does anyone have any questions?
I'm going through the comments now, so I'm going to say hello to people. Hi, Dee. Hi, Missy. Hi, Nana. Hey, Terry and Judy. Thank you for joining us.
We got a question from Katie.
Yes, Katie, we do have our 401c tax status. We are a nonprofit 401c3. I don't know. I've got the 501c3. Now that you specifically asked me this question, I don't remember exactly what it's called, but yes, we do have our nonprofit tax status.
We have a question from someone you might know.
Yes, you can be diagnosed at any age. So it's a test called a platelet aggregation test. Peter has been diagnosed quite a few times throughout life.
It seems to be whenever you're looking for a new doctor, they have to re-diagnose you with GT. So I had to get my blood tested again.
Yeah, the diagnosis talk again as well.
There's another question from Jessica.
Hey, Jessica. Yes. So we are in the process of getting it's called Stripe. We're getting it set up. Our bank that we use is actually just done a transition. So we have to get with them and get all of that set up, which I plan on doing before the end of this week.
Another from Donna.
I believe he is going to. He doesn't have the funding yet for the human trials. Once he gets that funding, then he can kind of move to the next step. But he keeps us updated on a pretty regular basis. And we also plan on doing something with him soon. I mentioned that we want to do a podcast. Our first podcast that we want to do would be an interview with Dr. Wilcox, and we would be asking him all sorts of questions, and he would be explaining his research and stuff to us as well.
Here's one from Eva.
Hey, Eva. So I do see this. Novo 7 doesn't work for everybody. That is why I mentioned that it wasn't developed specifically for GT. It doesn't necessarily work for everybody. So if you're using the correct dosage, which it does require a higher dosage for GT patients, you're using a correct dosage and don't see a difference, then platelets might be your next choice. Like I said, it doesn't work for everybody, unfortunately. Hi, Rebecca and Lori. Robbie told me to start singing.
Yeah, I saw that. I almost did.
Typically, if my mic goes out and I'm testing it, I always start with a, Peter, can you hear me?
Yeah, it looks like a lot of people have been diagnosed more than once. Or not, this seems really like a big thing with men with GT, that they're actually diagnosed way later in life.
Yeah, and we've noticed this. I honestly don't think that there's any studies behind this other than just like us paying attention to the community and stuff. Men typically have an easier time, per usual, because men got it so easy. But men typically have an easier time when it comes to bleeding, especially once especially once they get older. It's I mean, Peter, I think you can speak a little bit more on this, but
Yeah, I mean, I think you just get more careful. You're not as jumping around as a kid anymore.
mm-hmm.
I'm going to start doing some duplicate questions too, just because I think there's some good ones. This is probably for Novo 7. Do you see this on the screen?
Yes, I do see this. So Nova 7 hasn't really done a ton of studies on this. The study that we did find that helped them get their FDA approval was that they pulled from hemophilia treatment centers and saw how Nova 7 reacted for GT patients. And their information, like I said, it pulled from hemophilia treatment centers. I don't think that they did an actual control study on it. Now, we do get notifications, Google notifications to our email addresses, and Peter and I have seen that the therapeutic drug market for GT is expected to absolutely explode within the next 5 years. So that means that there are things in the pipeline. So there are things coming, definitely. We just don't know what they are yet.
So here's another one. Seems like everyone wants their hands on some t-shirts.
We need to come up with something. We've talked about coming up with a GT store, and that's definitely something that we need to look into. Once we really want to make sure that if we do it, it's available internationally. So we'll do some research, and we'll try to get to the bottom of it and get it available to y'all.
One from Katie that I think is really important.
Yes, we completely agree. We're definitely going to do something, whether it be a webinar, podcast, anything. We're definitely going to do something. This is something that Chris, who's on the board, she mentioned recently, and we've all been there. It's extremely important, especially when you don't have anybody in your day-to-day life who completely understands what you're going through. So we see the need, and we're definitely going to get some resources and some tips out there. No. So It's not that you can't have platelets ever again. So you'll develop specific antibodies. And then they have to find platelets. Like you'll develop specific antibodies to specific things within the platelets. So then they have to find platelets that don't have that one specific thing, which makes it more difficult for them to find them. So say that you find yourself in a situation where you need platelets and you need them now because it's a really, really, really bad bleed. If you have those antibodies, you now have to wait for them to find those specific platelets that your body won't reject. So if you're a carrier, you don't have GT, but you could have symptoms. I have known my own mother. She would have some, heavy bruising or anything like that. And I think that there's quite a few people within the group who are carriers who have had issues in the past as well. You just don't have that one, you have one mutation, you don't have the full GT.
Has anyone heard anything about stem cell treatments and GT?
I haven't really heard anything other than the bone marrow transplants. But the gene therapy is the biggest thing I've heard. And then I want to say that they're doing, there's a couple of other places that are doing some research with gene editing.
So I'm not sure if there's any more you want to check out. It looks like the comments are kind of slowing down. Oh, here we go from Donna. Will Dr. Wilcox recruit for human trials from within our community?
Yeah. So we're not quite sure exactly how many people he will need. He hasn't come to us about that yet or anything, but I'm assuming that he will. Because he needs to find people with GT. So there's also one on here, Peter. Let me see. I'm going to pull it up.
Yeah, feel free to.
Okay.
Just Donna asked if you would read them out before you answer.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, Donna. Okay, so Arthur said, hello, I want to know about some people outside first world countries and what they could do to make this less worse for them. Sorry about my bad English. So we're definitely going to focus on wound care. That's something that we feel like has kind of fallen to the layway, and it's very important for you to be able to treat these nosebleeds at home, to know exactly what to do, especially if it's something that's not severe enough for you to have to go to the hospital. Leah just posted on the Facebook page the other day about a nosebleed and her packing her own nose. That is definitely something that, a lot of people do and have done over the years. And we're definitely going to share some of those tips and tricks, and we're going to make that available to y'all.
A big thing I want to mention, guys, I've noticed we really like photos, and I love that. But when we're speaking about like treatments, if you could post videos, even if they're short videos, I think it would really be a huge help to anybody that's watching, because then we're really getting a firsthand look at how you're treating your bleeds.
Let's see. Has anyone had a baby or surgery without having platelets? Kristen, I actually don't know the answer to this. I can tell you for a fact that in growing up in my household, it was not ever considered an option, because that's what doctors had told us. Now that our community is so big and we've seen the different types of severity of GT, and we've known people who have had children. We have people in the group now who are pregnant, and they're, they're doing really well, or they were able to get through birth and everything. I don't know of anybody who has given birth without having to have platelets. I think it's something that in that situation, they do them out of an overabundance of caution. I have one.
Go for it.
Okay, so my gynecologist told me that I should take birth control for life and not having my periods ever again because it's destroying my inner body. He said it's common for all the GT women. Can you agree or disagree about it? I really don't feel comfortable about it. I honestly think that this is a completely personal decision. If you feel like your menstrual cycle is bad enough to where you don't want to go through it, or you don't think that you should go through it, then absolutely do what you can to try to stop that. But if it's something that you feel like you can maintain with birth control and, being able to handle that, yeah. I mean, like I just answered the last question. There are some women who have had children. There's some women who are having children. It really is up to you and what you feel comfortable with, and you know your body better than anybody else.
Here's a good one. Can we have those videos and photos separately to the main comments, as these could be triggering to those diagnosed with PTSD? So I was wondering this.
Could you do a picture and then comment the video?
I think what she's asking is if there are photos that are a little bit more, and videos that are a little bit more gruesome than others. Could we find a better place to put them? Maybe someone else in the comments, or any of you guys, could let me know if there has been photos or videos in the past that have been triggering for you. Please let me know, and then I can really investigate a way to make sure we can post them somewhere else, and I could figure out a way to kind of diagnose which photos and videos are a bit too much for the group.
So this isn't a question, but I want to share it because this is another response to Yosra's question. So Cassandra said, birth control is so personal and every woman bleeds differently and expresses GT differently. My sister and I have GT and have two very different cycle experiences in terms of heaviness. So like I said, it really is. Everybody's so different that there's no one blanket answer for this. I know that there are women out there who have had ablations to stop some of this. I know that, some people went under extreme hormones to stop their periods because they just couldn't stop bleeding. But then, like Cassandra said, there's some women out there who don't have that issue.
That's a good idea, Jessica. I think, I'm making a mental note of that.
To put a trigger warning on them?
Yeah.
Trying to make sure I haven't missed any of these. Oh, here we go. Your mom posted one that's helpful. Many years ago, we were told that testosterone during puberty in young men raises iron levels, helping with anemia. You lucky little devils. Whereas women go through the exact opposite. Do you have any idea if or when GT will be doing another? So CHESS is a different organization than the Glanzmann's Research Foundation. CHESS has done some stuff on GT, absolutely. I think that they're still doing things on GT. The foundation is not partnered with CHESS, though, so we really try to stick to that main mission of trying to fund for the cure and for trying to basically go over all types of treatments and everything to educate. They have a partnership with Novo, so they tend to focus a little bit more on Nova 7, which is great for people who aren't familiar with Nova 7. But we have a little bit of a broader vision for the education of this. And so we, I think part of our board goes to some of their stuff. I've been to a couple of their things, and Mom went to a couple of their things, and they do have good information. We're just totally different entities.
So what do you think? That was a pretty perfect hour. Any other questions?
Can a company do matching? This is a question that Katie asked. Katie, do you mean like donation matching? They should be able to, since we are a 501c3 nonprofit. They should be able to. You shouldn't have any issue with that.
Here's a good one.
Oh, sorry.
Can we talk about how to fund for a cure and how to send proceeds?
Absolutely. You can do it through the website. You can do it through Facebook. You can do it. I honestly think those are like the biggest ways. If you want to, if you're more comfortable sending it straight to Dr. Wilcox, you can call the Medical College of Wisconsin and get that information and send it straight to them as well. Ooh, I have one. Sorry. Would be interesting to see how GT affects our women. How many automatically have had hysterectomies, treated with birth control, have been able to have children after being on long-term birth control? I know it's difficult because GT symptoms and the severity changes between patients. So Rebecca, yes, GT and women's health is something that we feels needs to be addressed. It's so varying. We're planning on doing a webinar for this. We're just not sure exactly when we're going to do it, but it's definitely going to be this year. I am recruiting Adana and Gretchen, who are both on the board, and anybody within the community who wants to help with this as well, getting information together. Or if you have, if you think that your gynecologist would be amazing to talk to us and to speak to other GT women, reach out and let me know, because this is something that we definitely need to talk about. There's so many different options, and especially with people who present GT in different ways, those options need to be discussed so that everybody knows what's available to them. Yes, Nana, you can send checks to GT.
Here, I'll share it now just so everyone can see.
I was about to say, and you can mail them in as well. The address, I think, is available on the website, right? Yeah, the address is available on the website.
So you can click the donate button or the give button. I think they both go to the same place. We have right here how to send it to Dr. Wilcox. And another way to do it, and an easy way to help us out, is sign up for Smile, Amazon Smile, and a small percent goes to us from your shopping.
And that small percent adds up. I just want to say we get checks on a pretty regular basis, and those are helping keep the website going, as well as helping bring awareness and everything. So and helping us be able to do these webinars as well. Let's see. Crystal, is there something we can set up for a yearly fundraiser, a walk, run, something? We'd love to do this, just unsure where to start. We've definitely looked into it. I think we looked into a run, right, Peter?
Yeah.
We looked into a run. There's a lot of different software out there. It was a little overwhelming, but it's definitely something that we want to look back into. What I want to do is to at least do 2 fundraisers a year. Now I might be overshooting right now, but that's what I ultimately want to get to, and I definitely want to make one of those where anybody and everybody can get involved and get their community involved as well.